you want to introduce it?
Sure. So your dad had a great idea of sharing memories from our childhood and things that we did when we were our grandchildren's age, your children's age. So, um, I think you want to do all of yours at once and all mine at once, or go back and
let's
forth?
Go back and forth.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
I like that.
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay, memory number one. Number one is party line, our telephone. We shared a party line with our neighbors, the Jensens. In fact, I think maybe at one point we shared a party line with two other neighbors, but I just remember sharing the party line with our next door neighbor, the Jensens, Fawn and Dale Jensen, and they had 4 children. Colleen was just a year older than I was. Chris and Dave were 3 or 4 years younger, and then Dawn was the oldest. Dawn was about 4 years older than I was. But you'd pick the phone up to make a call, and they would already be on the phone having a conversation. Now, if you were real clever and real sneaky, you could slowly pick the phone up, put your finger on the little hang-up button, and slowly let it up so that they couldn't hear the phone being picked up, and you could listen into their conversations. But I found out not too long ago, on those old black phones like we had, actually you could have unscrewed the bottom part of it and taken the speaker out, and they wouldn't have been able to hear anything. But I wasn't that clever when I was young. So we had a party line, and it was always really irritating to have to make a phone call, or to want to make a phone call and pick it up and somebody else was on the phone already. So that was my memory number one.
Okay, my memory number one is when up until the time I was 8, we lived in a house in Manassas, just a block down from the elementary school. But next to our house, there was, maybe a half acre, 3/4 of an acre of alfalfa that was part of our property. And so the alfalfa would grow there, and Dad would cut it and bale it. But while it was growing, and before he cut it, we would go out and mash down the alfalfa into circular spaces that we each claimed to be our house. And so I might mash down 3 areas, one for my kitchen, one for my living room, one for my bedroom, and my brothers would do the same. And then we would go visit each other in each other's houses. And you couldn't see us because the alfalfa was taller than we were. But our dad wasn't too happy when he went to mow the alfalfa, and parts of it were laid down flat. But it was a lot of fun, a good way to play house. Reminded me of Luke and Amanda's shelter that they built in the woods.
Which, by the way...
Is it still there?
Well, now it is, because Addie helped reconstruct it just before she left.
Nice.
She showed me a picture of it. So, good job, Addie. Okay, memory number 2 for me. In Draper, growing up, we had 3 grocery stores. There was Sonny's Market, and Sonny was a truck driver, or not a truck driver, a bus driver. He owned a great big huge pig farm, and he had a grocery store. And then there was Frank's IGA. Frank had the best butcher block in town. You could always get the best meat at Frank's. And then down on the west end, just past State Street, there was a little tiny grocery store called Soper's Market. And Mr. Soper was just one of the nicest guys in the world. And you went in, it was actually a little market attached to the side of their house. And you went in what probably would have been like a front porch. That was the entrance. But it was all closed in. And in the entryway they had a big soda machine. And it sat on the floor. It had a lid that lifted up, and then rails. And the bottles of soda hung from the rails in refrigerated water. And the soda bottles were a dime. So you put your dime in, and then you picked whatever soda you wanted, and you had to lift it through the rails, run it all through the rails, until you got it all the way up to the front, and then lifted it up. It was like a little ratchet. When you lifted it up, you could hear your dime fall through, and then the ratchet wouldn't work anymore if the dime wasn't in there.
That's cool.
And we kept our soda bottles because we got 3 cents back on our soda bottles. We used to go around collecting soda bottles and then would turn them in either to Sonny's or to Soper's, and they'd pay us 3 cents for every bottle we returned. But the best thing about Soper's Market was the penny candy counter. He had a penny candy counter where candy was really a penny. And the candy I remember the most were the licorice wheels. They were like little black tires with a little red jawbreaker in the center. I only remember black licorice wheels. Wax lips, big red wax lips that were made out of flavored wax. And also wax soda bottles that were about this big, about that big, little itty bitty tiny. And you could bite the top off, and inside there was flavored juice. You'd drink the juice, which would be like less than an ounce, and then you could chew the wax soda bottles. And candy cigarettes. We used to always buy candy cigarettes. I think they were probably a nickel, but it was a little package of about 8 or 9, 10 candy cigarettes, just sticks of sugar that looked like a cigarette. And then licorice whips. Licorice whips were 10 cents, but you could get a red or a black licorice whip, and they were about 3.5 feet long. So Soper's Market, that's memory number 2.
Okay, well, that made me change one of my memories I was going to talk about. So, when your dad talked about how many grocery stores in Draper, it reminded me that in Manassas, when I lived there, it's not so now, there were also 3 grocery stores. And then in Romeo, and that was it, we had 3 grocery stores, probably 3 gas stations, a cafe. Anyway, that was Manassas. Romeo, which was 3 miles away, had 3, the word just left me, 3 bars, thank you, yes, 3 bars. One tiny grocery store that was sort of right next to a bar, but the bar was much bigger. Anyway, when I was 8 years old, we moved from our house in Manassas, that I just previously told you about, to the house out on the highway, out on whatever the interstate was. Anyway, it was a huge house. I thought we had just moved up in society. We had huge bedrooms and 2 living rooms and a huge kitchen. It was wonderful. Good place. But anyway, as we were moving and packed all our stuff in the car and traveling from one house to the other house, about lunchtime, Dad drove us into Romeo and said we were going to get lunch. And I was very timid in my younger years. I'm still pretty timid for the most part. But I remember thinking that we would be killed. You don't go into bars. Bars are where dangerous people go. But they had a counter in the bar where you could go in and order hamburger and french fries. And I remember Dad took us all in there, and we sat at the bar and we ordered hamburgers and french fries, and they were delicious. And I was glad he did that, although I never set foot in it by myself ever again, only with Dad. And my dad had a way of loving everybody. He was comfortable in all sorts of places. And anyway, that's kind of a fun memory, eating hamburgers at the bar.
But later, after we were married, there was still a bar in Romeo, Abe's Place.
Yep.
And one side was a bar and one side was a restaurant, and they had great Mexican food.
Yes, still the best Mexican food.
And we went there quite a bit.
Yep.
Every time we were in the valley, or whenever we were in the valley.
Yeah. It was the same place, actually. It was Abe's Bar, and
yep.
where we got the hamburgers.
And pool hall.
Yep.
I remember the pool tables. Okay, memory number 3 for me. Just a real quick one. My dad always had a pickup truck, and he always had a camper shell in the back of his pickup truck. He used to love to go out in the desert and look for old bottles, look for just where people used to live in ghost towns and dig in their old garbage dumps and see what interesting treasures he could find. But anyway, he always had a camper shell on the back. He'd go out and sometimes stay overnight and sleep in the back of his truck. anytime I went with my dad anywhere, whether sometimes I went out to the desert with him, or if he and my mom uh, went anywhere, I would always ride in the back of the pickup truck. And I would take my collection of Matchbox cars, because the ridges on the bed of a pickup truck are perfect. They fit a Matchbox car perfectly. So I could line those, if there were about 15 ridges, I guess, in the bed of a truck. I could line 15 cars up in those ridges, and anytime we would go up a hill, all the cars would roll to the back of the truck. And anytime we'd go downhill, the cars would roll to the front of the truck. And you couldn't do that today with seatbelt laws and everything else. But anytime we went anywhere, I just always rode in the back of Dad's truck and played with my Matchbox cars.
So did you see which car would make it to the other end?
Oh yeah.
First.
Yeah, I
Just
have my
like the
favorites.
mini racers.
Yep.
It's fun. Okay, my other memory also has to do, I'm pretty sure it was my 8th birthday also. So we got moved in, and I remember distinctly standing behind the house, and we had a driveway that came from the highway past the front of the house and around to the back of the house and out the other side. So it's kind of a drive in and drive out. And anyway, when either on my birthday or close to my birthday, my Grandma Thomas drove in and brought me a present. And she proceeded to tell me that my grandpa had picked out this birthday present for me, and that he had never picked out any birthday presents for any of his other grandchildren. And that was really, really touched me. And I still have that gift. I unwrapped it, and it was a small music jewelry box that still works. It's still, you can still wind it up and play the music, and I keep some of my special mementos in it. The glass is cracked in the mirror, but anyway, that's always been a really sweet memory of my grandpa. It made me feel like I was special to him, although I think all of his grandchildren felt that they were special to him.
So there you have it. There's 3 memories from our childhood.
Memories. Sorry, I just had to throw it in there.
So this video is already probably a little long, but your mom has a challenge.
Yes. Okay. So, an invitation. On one of your next posts, maybe next post, we should just get this over with. Just share a favorite scripture. You can just give the reference, or you can quote the scripture. But anyway, enjoy. Think about it.
Maybe tell us why. It's your
Ooh,
favorite.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay, we better get this thing posted before we get in trouble and have a consequence or a punishment. Don't want any punishments.
No,
We love you all.
very much.